that's weird. Okay.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Dusta, and today we are joined with Amanda Brennan. Is that correct?
Amanda Brennan.
Amanda Brennan, and she is with Wynnshire Collab. And today we are meeting on the computer, so thank you so much for coming to your computer to meet me.
You are so welcome. It was a really long journey, but I made it.
I love doing these remote recordings. They're great. They
I
always
know,
have an
it's so
interesting
great.
background. All right. So we're just going to jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in the Triangle and where you're originally from.
Yeah. So my husband and I are both from Maryland. He was active duty Marine Corps. He's still a Marine Corps reservist. So on our journey, we ended up in North Carolina and we were like, all right, this place is okay. So when he left active duty, we decided that we wanted to keep calling North Carolina home and we stayed here. So we've been in the Triangle for about 6 years now. We live in Apex and we've been here for 5.5 of those years, but loving it. We probably will never leave North Carolina.
That is a common response that I get, and I am loving it. It's like the same, like we've been here for this long and we are not leaving.
You're a Floridian, right?
I am.
Yeah.
And
So we met in the middle, Dusta. You know, I came from the north, you came from the south, and the stars aligned and we're here in North Carolina.
That's true. And I've been here since 2013.
Good. Okay.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and who's your ideal client.
Yeah. So my company, Wynnshire Collaborative, is really focused on human resource consulting, but I specialize in organizational development. So within that, a lot of what I'm doing is people process, people programs, team development, leadership development, or work around like culture and engagement. The ideal clients for me are actually smaller companies. I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to go work for myself, was to be able to do what I loved and to be able to bring some of those best practices that I learned in a big organization to smaller companies. So I love to work with companies that are even just a few people. If they want to work on their team dynamics, it could be 3 or 4 people, all the way up to the low hundreds where they might have an internal HR person and they need some support with a program, with a project, or with some sort of training that they just aren't able to deliver in-house. And actually, this is where I'm going to talk about this. So one of the things that, a need that we saw is that no matter what, we know 2 things. We know that managers account for 70% of variance that people have in their jobs, whether they're enjoying it or whether they're having a rough time. And we also know that people leave jobs because of managers. So one of the things that I'm actually launching in 2025 is a leadership development program that is designed specifically to be external. So it's not within an organization. It's for people from any company to come and join and still learn those skills and grow and develop as managers, even when their organization might only have 3 managers total.
That's absolutely amazing. I love hearing this because when this actually goes out, it's going to be 2025. So you're going to have to come back and you're going to have to share with us how everything went.
I will come back. I will debrief you on everything I learned in 2025. We'll need a 4-hour podcast.
It's okay. They'll be longer in 2025, guys.
Good.
Starting out, how has the role of HR evolved in entrepreneurial environments, especially with the rise of remote and hybrid work models?
That is a really interesting question. I was actually on a panel this week talking about fractional and consultant based HR work. And one of the things that, myself and all my panelists really shared was that life has changed a lot for HR in the past few years. No one would disagree that everything that happened in 2020 with the pandemic shifted the world, but it shifted so much for HR because before that, I think HR was like really behind the scenes and kind of reactive, but COVID happened. And then it was like, hey, how do we connect with people? How do we communicate with people? How do we ensure that they're being taken care of and that they have what they need? And the HR role changed for so many people. But the other thing that changed is that a lot of HR professionals got burnt out. They were being tasked with things that they weren't skilled or prepared to do. And some of the work became draining because it was a big ask for, no preparation or no resources for those people. So I think that shifted, but I think as far as doing like fractional work, being an entrepreneur in the space, it's really fun because, as I mentioned, I can bring some of those best practices from bigger organizations, things that I saw that worked for a 7,000 person company. I can bring them to smaller organizations so they can still experience all of those great benefits of having an experienced HR professional, being able to develop a people programmer, be able to do a training without having to hire someone full time or exhaust the resources, exhaust the HR people that they might have.
That is a big job. I'm going to be honest. I tried to hire in 2021 and quickly, and I mean within like 2 months, realized that this is not something that either I could handle or that it was anything that I was knowledgeable about. Because while I'm great with sales, running the business, things of that nature, that is one area that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are just like, not my bag. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny because on paper, hiring people sounds easy. Like we put out an ad, people apply, and we pick someone. But when you start thinking about really finding the right person so that you only have to do the process one time, you have to think about who should be involved. What do we want to get out of these interviews? Which role is everyone going to play? What are the values that are important to our company that we would like to make sure are mirrored in this person that we're hiring? And then also just bringing that person along a nice journey. Like if you're a fast-paced company but your hiring process is like 3 months, it's kind of giving a false impression of what it's like to actually work there.
You are absolutely correct. And finding the right person was a big challenge for me personally because I'm going to be honest, I didn't know who I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I just knew that this is what I do and I need someone to do that. Or
Yeah, that's so common with the entrepreneurs, with smaller businesses. Like, a lot of people's first hire is a friend or a family member, perhaps. I know that that's you. And those ones are kind of easy because you can really rely on them to do whatever it is that they need to do. One of my clients, her sister is on her team and her sister does whatever, and it's her sister, so she can ask her like, hey, can you step in and do this, can you figure this thing out? But then when you start to scale, you start to realize that you need to find other skill sets that might not exist in your friends or family, and you have to think about what are the skills that are missing, and then how do I find those people that have those skills that I don't already know. And that becomes creating a good process and, leveraging connections, getting out there, posting jobs. But to post a job, you have to know what you're looking for.
absolutely. And that was a challenge for me. So that brings me to my next question. What unique challenges do entrepreneurs face when they're scaling their teams, and how can you help them mitigate those challenges?
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, the first biggest challenge I will say that I have seen with smaller organizations, including just entrepreneurs or one person going to a few people, is having some sort of process. And that doesn't just mean, okay, well, I'm going to do 3 interviews, but it means figuring out, how am I going to evaluate this person? I want to look at their skills. I want to hear about, some of their experiences, but I also want to know if they're like a fit, that culture piece is really hard. So, coming up with a clear process has been one of the things that I've helped a lot of smaller organizations with. And, one of, I guess, the smallest organization that I've helped develop a process was like 10 people. They hire 1 or 2 a year. They're growing slowly. They've had to backfill a little bit. So, it's not something that they're running through this process every day or every week, but they still needed an organized process to make it easy for their company and to make sure that they got the right hire out of the end of it. So I think that is a huge area, is developing process even when you are a smaller organization. And that's a thing a lot of companies don't take the time to focus on. And I will be honest, I was guilty of it myself as an entrepreneur. Okay, I'll just write this one-off proposal and I'll send it this way. And then when you start scaling and you're like, okay, I need to write 5 of those proposals. And that took me an hour for one. You realize you can't do things that way. So developing a process or, using technology if that's available, not always as available for the people side of things, but just having a good process in place can be really easy for even small organizations.
I absolutely agree with that because I started out just like, okay, I'm going to come to your house and here's a quote, cool. And then as we scaled, it evolved to, well, here's a hard copy, here's a checklist, whatever thing we've gone over, here you go. And
Yeah.
then it became digital. And so it has to evolve each time. And I
Yep.
think that
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur, sometimes we have to know when to pivot. And that is
Yeah.
something that's really hard.
Yeah. No, it is. And like when do you invest in the thing? And that can be challenging. And I would say I'd love to help someone create a process that they can use one time. Is that the best use of their resources? Maybe not. But if it's a process that they use once a quarter or, once a month, then it's something that they should consider creating some efficiency in so that it's smoother and it saves time, even if it costs a little bit of time or money to build once.
I agree. So, what strategies should early stage entrepreneurs use to attract top talent without the financial resources of a large corporation?
Oh, I will be honest, I don't spend a lot of time in talent branding or talent acquisition. That really hasn't been what I focused on since I was early in my career. But I think being, especially in this area, especially in Raleigh, Triangle area, being part of the community is huge. I see people at different events. If someone came to me and asked me for a resource or a recommendation, I probably have one because I'm connected in the community. So I think if people are looking for a new hire, a new employee in addition to their team, they could leverage people in the community like, hey, who do you know that could help me build out an app? Who do you know who could install some built-ins in my office? Like being able to just know people who do those things and who have certain skills that you might need is really helpful. Because of course you can post, but then you're going to get lost with the dozens, hundreds of other job postings out there. So I think personal connections are still really important.
I
And I'm
agree.
laughing because I got built-ins done earlier this year. So I now have a person I can recommend for built-ins or custom work like that.
No, and community is really big. And something that I've noticed, because I come from a really big city where you don't see the same person twice, like ever.
Oh,
I don't care how many times you take that route to work, right? And I come to North Carolina, and at first I'm living in Asheville. It's a small community base where if you don't know somebody, you get the hell out, right? And I'm okay with that. And then I moved over here to Clayton, and I realized when I started a business, it is very much a small town when I started, and it is based on community and who you know and the relationships that you build, because it's not like that where I'm from. And again, this was, I've been here for 10, 11. I'm gonna stop doing math. I've been here a long time.
for a little bit. You've been
Yeah.
here.
I was just like, oh, that hurt. And so I've realized that, it is about the community, it is about the connections that you make. And if you want to hire quality people, essentially, or you want something done, you want to know a guy. You don't want just to pull up the phone book and be like, this one.
Yeah. I am from the opposite. I am from a small town in Maryland. We go by county, not by city. It's growing, but I'm from a county. That's how we identified where we lived. And I think it was you very much knew who did what there. You're like, "Oh, that family owns that grocery store. Oh yeah, that family's farm is down there." There were like prominent family names and you kind of knew who did what. So that didn't change for me, but I was surprised because I felt like Raleigh's pretty big. The greater Raleigh area, it's pretty big for how connected people are, including Clayton. Like, Clayton's not far, but to be connected into Raleigh is kind of surprising, but it really is about connection and community and relationships.
Absolutely. That was actually something that kind of surprised me a little bit because I thought, oh, I'll just start networking in Raleigh and like nobody will know. they know everybody over here. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, so and so. And I'm like, this is so funny because you wouldn't get that where I'm from. And I love that.
Yeah. You would totally get it where I'm from, but I still love it. I think it's great. I think it's great as an entrepreneur because you can show up and meet people, and that person could connect you to somebody or know something that could help you about a place or a thing that's happening around the triangle. I love it.
Absolutely. That's one of those things that it's all about who you know, not what you know. And that's how you end up learning a lot more. So,
Yeah.
in your experience, though, how does employee retention in startups differ from like a larger organization, and what lessons can be applied to both?
I think it really depends on the type of organization because I wouldn't want to say that this is true for every organization. But I will say that to be in a smaller scaling company, you're all good. To be like a smaller scaling company, you typically have to be a certain type of personality, and that type of personality is usually I'm okay with wearing a lot of hats and I'm okay with change. You can't be like this isn't my job description. So I think that smaller companies probably hire people who are a little, I use this word, I know not everybody likes it, but like scrappier person. Like they're going to come in and figure it out and get it done regardless of what their job title is. I think that some companies can retain them as they grow and they can develop more specialized roles, but I also think that there's probably some attrition, some people leaving smaller companies as they grow because they want to be part of that scrappier environment versus specialized. Like they like a big broad job where they come in every day and it's different versus I come in and I do the same thing. So I don't actually know the exact numbers for anything regarding retention, but that's just probably some of the characteristics that I would say you see in a smaller organization versus some of the larger ones.
I agree with that. I would rather work if I had to work for somebody, a smaller business than a corporation because I have done both. And when I worked for a large corporation, I would come in and I would have the same. I did it for 2 weeks and I was like, I'm out. I'm sorry. Like it just felt very, I don't know, like high school. I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, I when I decided to go out on my own, I went to my friend and I told her I was going to do it and she's like, "Oh, you should have been doing this all along. This is your personality." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, Amanda, you always wanted to do more. You wanted to grow and like do other things and you're willing to take on more stuff and you would get a little bit bored if your job was the same within the same parameters." And I was like, huh, who knew? And she's like, I knew.
That explains it so much because that was me. I was like, dude, I cannot deal with this. I can get all my work done in 4 hours, but you want me to stay here for 8? I'm absolutely bored.
Yeah. Which, oh my gosh, that's one of the not I don't know that I ever felt truly, truly bored, like there was nothing to do, but that is like one of the coolest things about being an entrepreneur is like setting your own schedule, figuring it out. I do not feel bored working for myself. I feel challenged every day with something, and that's something I love.
Me too. It's kind of addicting. I'm not going to lie. As soon as I started doing it, I started doing it at 18 and then I took a break because I had some children and, some life
Oh,
ups and
those
downs happened.
children. Mhm.
And so I was like, I'm going to work for someone else. And so the longest job I've ever held was for 6 years and I worked at Pizza Hut. And the only reason I held this job so long was I was a shift leader essentially, and I would work nights. And I kind of got to go to different ones because I was in an area where I didn't have the same store every time because they needed
Mm.
to shift me around. And I was like, cool, love this. And it was like the longest job I had.
Yeah, and so you started your company in the pandemic. Like you took your money and you were like, "Okay, let's go start a company." So that was a big shift for you, just like the rest of the world shifted. That was a huge shift for you, but it's been your thing.
Yes. It's so funny because every time I think about it, I'm like, man, looking on the outside, I must have been like crazy, right? Because I had a job at Walmart. Let me just be real transparent. And I had worked there exactly 40 hours 1 week, got that stimulus check, and was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I could
Oh my
either work for
gosh.
$11 an hour, or I could take this little bit of money and I could double it, triple it. I could turn it into something else. And if we're being honest, what better opportunity than a pandemic to start a cleaning company, right?
For sure. It was all about clean sanitation, clean air, washing hands. It was the cleanest the world has ever been.
Exactly. And I got so excited because I have OCD. So I'm just going to say that. And, I could only clean my house so many times. I could only wash my hands so many times. And I was like, we need to like start cleaning the world. Let's go. Let's get out there.
Yeah.
So I did it. And I feel like now looking back on it, wow, that was like A, the perfect timing. B, absolutely could not have been a better opportunity for me. And like I was crazy, but I did it. So I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too.
Well, thank you. It was very difficult time for everyone. So
It was the worst time. It was awful.
I'm trying to like, damn it. No, it was awful.
It
Okay.
was
It really was.
awful. Everyone hated it.
Right. And then I feel like honestly, we saved a lot of marriages. And the reason I say that is
Mm,
because we were coming into your home and doing the one thing that you absolutely did not have time to do because you were working, homeschooling, and 24/7 dealing with your whole family.
yes. Yeah. I remember there was like one week where I'd worked all week and my kids were home and our cleaning people, and I don't know if there was like a mandate or if they just didn't want to come because of everything. There was like a period, and I remember it was like a Friday night and I was cleaning and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate this. I was just like so upset at everything. Like I was so tired and it was so hard to balance kids being home. And the last thing that I really wanted to do was clean my house on a Friday night.
Absolutely. And I was like, let's do this. Let me get out of this house and I'll clean someone else's. It'll be fun.
I wish I knew you in 2020.
I was just thinking, I live in Clayton. I'm starting to realize where some of my weaknesses are. What role does technology play in modern human resources, and how can entrepreneurs leverage that to leverage the tech to streamline their processes and improve employee engagement?
Oh man, this is like a multi-part question. One is I think that there are so many variations of HR technology that even smaller companies can have access to. So I think a lot of them, until they get to a certain point, don't need it. But once you get to a certain point and you need to organize people things, I'm saying people meaning HR things, there are tons of HR systems where it's like a pay per employee per month model. So if you only have a few employees, you're not paying the same price as somebody with 200 employees. So I think there's some really accessible things. I think as far as streamlining process, it's not even necessarily just using HR technology, but it's using technology that exists and applying it in an HR capacity. So, a good example is if you hire a few people and you need to train them, and you know that you don't have a dedicated person to train, your 3 new hires a year or whatever it is, using technology to make videos that can train them, or documenting things using other AI tools to create guides that can help them figure out how to do their job. And they can have those as a resource, and they can come to you for the things that maybe they don't understand or can't figure out. So I don't even think it has to be an HR specific technology, but just leveraging all of the technology that exists out there. And
Yes,
what
you
was
had
the
me.
sorry?
I was you had me get a light bulb moment when you were saying make videos, and I thought, oh, that could be a large reason why me as a small business and an entrepreneur is not doing so well, is not having the best time, I guess I should say, training my new hires, because that was an
Yeah.
absolute mess. It was me going out, and this is just how I work as a person. I was like, let me see where you're at, and then I can critique and fix like what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Which now I realize that that's probably not the best way to teach them.
So I guess that's an interesting thing to consider because not everybody learns the same way. There's going to be people that want to hear it, people that want to read it, people that want to do it. So I think you have to probably be able to meet people in the middle. But I will say, if you're strapped for time, documenting yourself, even in all three of those ways. You could type up guides, you could record yourself talking about how to do it, and you could make a video. And if you do each of those even one time, it would save you the time every time you train an employee. You could be like, here's three different ways that you could learn how to do this. So I feel like some of this stuff can be really simple. And I think that's probably one of the things that I bring to smaller companies is, yes, I say org development and I say people process, and it sounds really fancy or corporate, but it can be really simple things that you can meet someone where they are. You can implement them pretty quickly. It doesn't mean that we need to go spend thousands of dollars on technology or coming up with some complicated process that doesn't make sense for a small business. And then I just remembered what the second part of your question was for increasing engagement. Was that the end of your question?
Yes.
I think engagement looks different for smaller companies because typically you, as the business owner, for example, you're going to interact with your people directly and you'll have close relationships. That's probably one of the things that you see when companies start scaling and there's more layers of managers. So if you had a Clayton manager, an Apex manager, and a Carry manager, you'd probably talk to those three people, but not the people that are doing the work on a day-to-day basis. So the engagement would look different with them. I think technology can help you engage with your people by meeting them where they are. I think that keeps people really happy. Especially if you had a new hire and you said, "Hey, I've got a few different ways that I could teach you how to do this thing. Which do you prefer?" Having a choice and feeling heard and feeling like it matters, I think is huge for engagement. So some of those really simple things I think can increase engagement. It doesn't have to be like a big crazy initiative. It can just be seeing the people as they are and respecting their wishes or their preferences.
I agree with you on that because that's one of those things where when I worked at, Pizza Hut, they'd sit you down and you'd watch the videos, right? And then I'm just sitting there bored, just like clicking through it. Like, when can I be done with this? It's the same with a lot of fast food places. But when I became like a cleaner, I thought watching a video is not going to really do anything. Let's put our hands to it. Let's see what we actually
Yeah.
think of. So I agree with you on that. And I think that maybe I need to do some tweaking to my systems now.
Yeah. Or tweak for the people that need it to be tweaked. If everyone's like, "No, I like the way you do it," but you can just ask people for some feedback. "Hey, you're my three most recent hires. What did you think about our onboarding? What did you think about training? What could I have done better?" You can get some great information just by asking people.
Yes, I think feedback is very important, especially when you're a small business and you're just starting out with the hiring process, with
Oh, yeah.
everything that you're doing, making sure that you are getting that feedback. Moving forward, let's talk about the future of work because we have a lot of different things going on. We've got AI coming in, we've got,
Yeah.
remote work, we have everything, right? So, how do you see the workplace of the future evolving, especially with the trends like the AI, the automation, and the gig economy?
Oh, well, AI I talked about. I don't think AI is ever going to replace people. I think people are so scared of it. It can't do the job of a human. It can give you some nice frameworks and it can actually make your job easier. Like, Dusta, if you wanted to write a job description, you could go to your friend ChatGPT and say, "Hey, help me write this job description," and give it some information and it could spit out something that you could work with. So I think it's helpful in creating some efficiency and some speed because people have access to things that maybe they didn't have access to. It's not going to give you the 100% version, but it will get you part of the way there. As far as, sorry, gig economy was part of it, and what was the other part? AI,
Eh,
automation.
It was automation, AI, and gig economy.
Okay. Um, Automation changing the world. I don't know if I'm the best one to speak to some of that. I think technology that can automate process is incredibly helpful, but I still think a lot of the work that I do has people involved in it. Like I haven't created anything where I'm like, "Hey, nobody has to be involved." I think for some of the companies that I've worked with, they've had onboarding technology where it is automated and that it would send you a notification to say, hey, welcome to your first day. Please watch this video. Hey, it's your third day. We need you to fill out this form. It could give them some reminders, so it would be automated in that way. But I don't see that taking jobs from people. I see it making people very happy that there's reminders and stuff in place. And then gig economy, I think can be really interesting for entrepreneurs because we talked about finding people for your business. And if you find people who love doing kind of project, temporary stuff, sometimes you can leverage that as a small business owner. Like I am considering doing some website changes. Some of it I started working on, but I also realized how much time it was taking from me and how I don't have that expertise. And thinking about hiring someone who loves to just build websites is a great use of my resources because it frees up hours of my time and gives me a product that's probably 5 times as good as what I would have created. And there's people that love to do that. Like nobody wants to come work for me as my personal marketing person or, a graphic designer for me because they can't hire it, but they love doing gigs, projects like that. So I think it opens it up for small businesses to have access to stuff. But I don't know if it changes things for some of the bigger companies. I think some big companies might see that people start demanding more flexibility or they choose to go do things on their own. So it might put a bit of pressure on them for some of those things like return to work policies or less flexible environments. I think if people start feeling like they could go out and do some stuff on their own, they might pressure organizations like, okay, if you're going to tell me I have to be here 5 days a week from 8 to 5, I'd rather go work for myself because I know I can. And then I can work from 8:30 to 3 if that's what I want my thing to be. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I think the gig economy is going to keep growing because people want to have other things that they do and people are realizing that they don't have to have started in one space to make a career of it. I could decide to go start a pottery business tomorrow and no one's going to be like, I won't buy the pot from you because you didn't start doing that when you were 18. You just started pottery. So I think people are realizing that now and exploring other ways to make money and use their skills and talents.
I definitely understand where you're coming from. My whole thing is I have ADHD, and so I've never done the same thing, right? And I've noticed that some people want to, excuse me, look at it like, oh, you're not an expert because you haven't been doing it for 150 years. And I'm like, right, but if I can master it in 2 or 3, then I don't understand why I can't, go forward with that and then move on to something else. I'm a gig person. That's why I love working for myself because I'm never cleaning the same house all the time. It's always a different house with a different set of criteria and a different client and a different vibe. And I'm kind of noticing I do have some very loyal clients that have been with me from the beginning, but the more that I bring on, it's magical. I don't know how to explain it. It's just great. It's like, yes, I've been cleaning houses for 100 years at this point, but every house is different. They all have different accommodations for what they want done. So I'm a gig person. I love that. And I hope that it does make a whole thing because I would love to see many people with many different talents. My mother always used to tell me that variety is the spice of life. I
She's
think,
right.
yeah, I think she was a little bit right there because it's true. And I was like, man, that means I want to explore and experience everything and
Everything.
everything. I know it's the ADHD, and some people can look at that as not stable. I don't know the exact word I'm looking for, but like like wishy-washy all over the place,
Yeah,
whatever.
like disloyal or
There you go.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, disinterested. I just had a conversation with someone because the world is so much different. Like my dad, super boomer, was like, go work for the government, start there when the day you graduate college and stay there forever. And I thought that sounded terrible. I was like, what? You just go to one place and you just stay there? And I remember I switched jobs pretty quickly out of college. I graduated during our recession like 15 years ago. And I took the first job I could get and I liked it, but I found another job maybe 9 months later that was better when the economy shifted a little bit. And I remember him saying something about me switching jobs. And I'm like, well, I want to be happy. I want to get to do what I like. And he was just like fierce loyalty. Like, you found one job, just stay there. So I think the world has shifted and people's minds have shifted. But I see tons of people now who are changing not just jobs, but changing their industries, changing what they've done. They did sales for 10 years and then they go and practice law, do something completely different. And that's okay. I feel like people have more choice and they're using it like, oh, okay, I can start over in my career and I'm still going to be successful.
I was just gonna kind of piggyback on what you were saying. I have the same father who was in the military, who was 32 when he had me. So clearly he was a lot older. And his whole thing was go to college, get a government job, work it for 40 years, get your pension, and you're good to go. I want to be an artist. And of course he was like, you'll never make money, the whole starving artist thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
cool, I'm going to try it anyway. Tried it. He was right. And then that's when I was like, maybe I need to prove him wrong in a different capacity and like just be an entrepreneur and like go make my money the way I want to do it instead of working for someone else. So I agree with you on that. We're aligned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did read on your website that you did something like DISC assessments.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and tell me what that is?
Yeah. So a DISC assessment is one of many types of personality assessments, is the best way to put it, that exist out in the organizational development world. And I like using DISC as a framework for working with leaders or teams. So a lot of these assessments will analyze different things about like the pace at which you like to work, how you like to communicate, if you're more of a internal versus external processor, if you are more of a numbers person, I'm air quoting in case anybody's listening to this, a numbers person or a people person, and it gives you some feedback about yourself. So I like to use DISC for teams in particular just to get a foundation for them to have some understanding of themselves. Like, how do I show up? What are the things that are important to me, or what are my preferences? And then also for them to take a look, we do like a little map and you can see where everyone plots on this DISC assessment to see where everyone else on their team lands. Because sometimes you've got conflict within a team, and this could be a team of 4 people. You've got conflict on a team and you're like, oh, everybody is always, having problems with me. And then you might look at this map and realize, okay, well, people think that you're slowing them down because you're more of an analyzer and you don't want to make a quick decision, and you're working with several people who want to make a decision on the spot and it's not your style or your preference. So I like to be able to show them that and to give them some information to use, and then we can build upon it. So if we need to double down on having tough conversations or decision making or some other facet of communication, we've got the DISC assessments that we can use as a baseline for talking about preferences and talking about differences between people.
I love that, because that is something that when you're building a team, you need to make sure that everybody works together and they're cohesive and that the personalities are great. Just thinking about that is overwhelming. So I'm glad that you have the ability to figure that out, because my brain does not work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't use them as a predictor of success. Like, if you wanted to hire someone and we wanted to do an assessment on them, I wouldn't ever say, oh, this person's not going to be successful in this job. But it would be a guide to say, hey, Dusta, you're going to manage this person whose style is different from yours. Here's a few things to be aware of. So it also really helps managers and leaders be prepared for how they need to interact with their people, because even the simple things can really make a difference in someone's experience. And if you can meet people where they are and you can show that you've tried to understand them, I think that goes a long way in engagement and retention if you're trying to retain your people.
And mental health.
And mental, I go for many things. Yes.
For sure. That was absolutely straining, because there was so much drama between certain people. They couldn't work together. And this is not my thing. I don't understand. Just go do your job.
Yep.
Again, that's not my thing. So I need to make sure that I'm outsourcing that. But talking about mental health, how can entrepreneurs balance the demands of scaling a business with the needs to prioritize the mental health and well-being of their employees?
Speaking for myself, I still do the things that I want to do every day because I know it'll make me a better business owner. So I really still try to do things like work out, move, walk, run, whatever, things like that, and spend time with my family because I know if I let some of those things go, I'm not going to show up as the business owner that I want to be. So I think the same thing applies to business owners and leaders is making sure that your employees are working, but that you're giving them opportunity to do the things that they love. And that might take some curiosity about finding out what those things are. Like if you're not a person who likes waking up early or connecting with people early in the day, one of the things a manager can do is just give you a little space. Hey, let's have afternoon meetings, let's do this stuff later in the day. Or if they know that you like to go train for a half marathon at 5 a.m., they won't bother you until a little later so you can get your half marathon training in.
No, absolutely agree with you on that because I am not a morning person. Like afternoon, we're good with that. Like I need 17 cups of coffee and like 3 hours of just going at the TV until I'm good, you know?
And I pop out of bed ready to go. For the most part, ready to go. I also, my husband got me into this. Now he's going to laugh that I'm talking about this, but he got into like all this cold plunging stuff maybe 2 years ago. And oh my gosh, if you want to wake yourself up in the morning, go and jump into a tub of cold water. You will be more awake than your 17 cups of coffee.
All right, start every morning with a cold plunge. Got it.
Cold
Writing
plunge, you
it
could do
down.
it, yeah.
So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today? Give you the platform.
I I think being an entrepreneur and a mom is such a unique thing. And I know that you get it because even just on this podcast, both of us were like, oh, hey, I got to tell my one kid something. I got to send a text about my other kid. But I think it's also a really beautiful thing. Like, I did not know a lot of moms who decided to go start their own thing. And I think the biggest thing holding them back was fear of how am I going to figure this out or how am I going to balance it? But it's been surprising as an entrepreneur who has 3 kids that you can do it all. And sometimes, you're doing a little bit of weird stuff. Sometimes I'm snuggling with my kids at night and, responding back to emails or whatever. But I also think it's one of those beautiful things because I've been able to bring my kids to set up an event that I'm going to be part of, or help me organize my materials for a workshop that I'm going to facilitate. And they love it and they feel connected to it. And they're also proud. Like my kids are so proud that, oh my gosh, my mom owns a business. Like it's such a cool thing for them to say. So motherhood and entrepreneurship being an entrepreneur and a mom is actually one of the things that I think is really fun to me. And I wanted to hear what your thoughts are on it.
So I love that. I also have 3 children. I have 2 that are adults at this point, and then I have one who is 9 years old. I had 2 phrase. They were back to back, a year and a half apart, and I highly recommend to anyone. So I had my kids young, and those children, they knew me as an employee, as an overstressed, overworked, underpaid, never had any time, couldn't do the basics as in cooking, cleaning, whatever, right? Because I'm never home. And my youngest daughter, who happens to be 9, she has a complete different view of who I am as a person. She gets a different parent. I don't know what it is, but it's like, my mom owns a business. My mom knows everyone in town. My mom did this. And I'm just like,
it's pride. I think it's pride.
I'm like, I don't know the word for it. I'm not great with English. It's fine. But yeah, she's very like prideful in that. And we'll go, like, for example, our town has a trick or treat event where all the small business owners in town, they shut down the main street and everyone's out there giving out candy, right? She's been doing this since she was little, but she knows all these people and they know her and she feels so special because of it.
Yeah.
And my other daughter, she's been working with me since she was 14 years old. She has seen every single aspect of being a business owner. So when she turned 18, she goes, guess what I'm doing? I'm starting a business. I ain't working for nobody. And so she started a photography business.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just been so inspirational to be able to give my children more by being an entrepreneur than it was being, stuck in that 9 to 5.
Yeah, and not just saying, okay, you can do anything, but showing, hey, I did this too. Like, here's the proof. You saw me working, you saw me being a great mom. I did it. You can do it. That's
Yeah, and I'm much
awesome.
like you, at night I'm doing emails while they're taking a bath and making sure that their lunch is good and all of the things. And, sometimes we're on the way to school or on the way home, making sure emails are done. What are you doing? Hey, I got to make sure I get a hold of them. So they're seeing that I'm both being a parent actively and also an active entrepreneur. And I think that that's a great balance.
It's a great balance. And I love having that role model experience for them.
Exactly. And that's one of those things that you can never take that away from them. And also
Yeah.
think about the connections that my daughter has built through networking, through being there with me for the last 4 years, right? She's been there. She knows these people. So when she went to start her business, she knew a guy to get her cards done.
She
She
knew
knew a guy to get her
somebody.
insurance. Like she knew everything she needed to know. And so I feel like that was a great gift I could have given her.
It's awesome.
So
That's
go ahead and tell everybody what your website is. I'll link it in the episode, but just in case they're listening and they want to go check it out.
cool. Yeah. If you want to connect with me, I would love to stay connected. I am on LinkedIn since I'm doing B2B stuff. So you can find me, Amanda Brennan, on LinkedIn. And you can also visit my website, www.wynncollab.com.
All right, well, thank you so much for recording with us today, and join us next week for another exciting episode.
Thanks for having me, Dusta.
Bye, guys.